Kohala Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Kadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that teach and rule well, and to all the Akim that puts the truth and true sincerity. Shalom. As you can see, Jake working in the field, Jake in prison. Esau is being a damn hound like he always is. But this is the book of Lamentation, chapter 1 and verse 3. Judah is going into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest. All her persecutors overtook her between the straits. Verse 4. The ways of Zion do mourn, because none come to the Solomon feast. All her gates are desolate. Her priests sigh. Her virgins are afflicted, and she is in bitterness. You know, this captivity is nothing but bitterness. It had been nothing but shameful and disgrace. How bad the children of Israel have fell off. And the Jakes that are out there had no clue. The ones that are asleep had no clue how great they once were. Anyway, verse 5. Her adversaries are the chief. Her enemies prosper. For the Yahweh have afflicted her for the multitude of her transgressions. Her children are gone into captivity before the enemy. I'll read it again. Her adversaries are the chief. Her enemies prosper. You know, you look at the so-called white man, there's an old thing called their old money. You know, the Rothschild got their old slave money. This is verse 7. Jerusalem, remember in the days of her affliction and of her misery, all her pleasant things that she had in the days of old, when her people fell into the hand of the enemy, and none did help her. The adversaries saw her, and they mocked at her Sabbaths. You know, we fell before our enemies. The crown of our head has fallen. This is Lamentation chapter 5, verse 16. Quick precept. The crown is fallen from our head. Woe unto us that we have sinned. Verse 17. For this our heart is faint. For these things our eyes are dim. Lamentation again, back to Lamentation chapter 1, verse 8. Jerusalem had grievously sinned, therefore she is removed. All that honored her despise her, because they have seen her nakedness. Yea, she sighed and turned it backward. Let's get down. This is verse 16 of Lamentation chapter 1. For these things I weep mine eye runneth down with water, because the comforter that should relieve my soul is far from me. My children are desolate, because the enemy prevailed. You know, these are days of vengeance. When we was in a hard captivity, the hard bondage. You know, we're not in that same condition as far as having a chain and yokes around our necks. But we still in slavery. We still serving the enemy. We still working for the enemy. Anyway, this is we still serving the enemy by working, you know, by doing all types of bullshit that Esau has us doing. Anyway, this is verse 17. Zion spreadeth forth her hands, and there is none to comfort her. The Yahweh have commanded concerning Jacob that his adversaries should be round about him. Jerusalem is as a minister's woman among them. Verse 18. The Yahweh is righteous, for I have rebelled against his commandment. Hear, I pray you, all people, and behold my sorrow. My virgins and my young men are gone into captivity. You know, the Jakes that's still in that sleep, that's still in that drunken state, they're not going to get it. Although everybody knows, everybody in the world on this planet knows that the so-called Negroes and Hispanics and Native Americans went through captivity, they're not going to understand it, because the Spirit's not dwelling with them. You know, the Spirit put all things to your remembrance. This is John chapter 14, verse 26. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, the Kodash, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you.
And get Job chapter 9 and verse 24. We all know this. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Who can it be but the so-called white man, Esau? You know, Jake ain't running nothing right now. You know, Jake may have certain positions and certain jobs and certain things where he shines a little bit. You know, you got your LeBron James, your Floyd Mayweathers. In football, you got your, your Patrick Mahomes and whoever. But that's not the same as, the so-called white man. he makes the whole rules in this captivity. You know, he the one that sets up all this foolishness. The sodomites. He put the women's over the men's. You know, he put the women's over the men's and had the men feminized. That's Esau doing.
This is Psalm chapter 44 and verse 10. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. Who does that sound like but the so-called Negroes, Native Americans, and Hispanics? Who have been through all the hell but the so-called Negroes, Native Americans, and Hispanics, the children of Israel. Verse 12, thou sellest thy people for naught, and does not increase thy wealth by their price. Verse 13, thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Who has all of these different names, the spits and niggas and all, they call the Native Americans Redskins, you know, refer to the Mexicans as spits, wetbacks and all these different bywords. Verse 15, thou makest us a byword among the heathen, a shaking of the head among the people. You know, Esau stay hating on Jake. You know, as you can see, Jake always, Jake got a term for saying, oh, we got haters. And that's the truth. Esau can't stand the sight of us, man. I'm going to get to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 14. And the Yahweh Mosiah said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and thus shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. That serpent represents Esau, not an actual snake in a garden. This is verse 15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. Her seed, which is Jerusalem. You know, Jerusalem is as a wife unto the Most High. That's Jeremiah chapter 6. And that serpent represents Esau. Once again, that's Micah chapter. You can go to a quick precept in Micah chapter 7, I believe it's verse 17. I'll read it again. I will put enmity between thee and the woman. We cannot ever be friends with Esau. And between thy seed and her seed, it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. That also going into Jacob and Esau in the book of Genesis chapter 25. When Jacob grabbed the heel of Esau. And Esau is also the sword of the Most High. You know, to punish us for our iniquity, for us breaking the law, statutes, and commandments. This is a book of Psalms. Chapter 17 and verse 13. Arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. And Esau had done a hell of a job of being a damn devil. That's for damn sure. This is Psalm chapter 14, verse 7. Oh, that the salvation of Israel will come out of Zion, when the Yahweh bring it back the captivity of his people. Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. You know, when has any of these nations have been in captivity? None of these nations have suffered the pain that we have suffered. The so-called Negroes, Native Americans, and Hispanics, and to the speckled birds that's out there. None of them had went through those pain and sufferings. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna give all praise to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua by Hashem Kadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and teaching rule well, and shalom to the Akim. Shalom.